What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to do a review on a repair that I made. We get a lot of questions about this repair, and most of the questions are, is this repair still holding up? I'm going to tell you what that repair is and kind of go through the steps and explain how I come to making that repair. So stay tuned. So the repair we're talking about today is fixing a cracked gray water tank. So our kitchen gray tank had a crack develop on the bottom of it. This has been 2 years ago, and not sure how it happened, but it started leaking. When I cut the underbelly open, I saw that there was a crack probably about 2.5 inches long on the very bottom of the gray tank. We were actually in Ohio at that point, so at a campground, so I tried to make a quick repair. I went down and got some JB Weld plastic weld. I thought that might do the trick. So that worked pretty decent, getting us out of a jam, but it definitely wasn't a permanent fix. It held up for just a month, maybe two, and then started leaking again. So at that point, I went on the search to try to figure out what would be the best way to permanently repair this tank without having to replace the tank. I wanted to avoid having to replace that tank at all costs. I did not want to spend the money or the time to drop that tank and replace it. So as a quick fix number two, I went down and got some FlexSeal tape. So I patched it over with FlexSeal tape. That worked pretty well actually for just another quick fix. I was just trying to get us by until I could kind of figure out how I wanted to tackle the problem, without having gray water leaking all over the campsite. So patched it up with some FlexSeal tape. Was real careful not to overfill the gray tank. We just put a little bit of water in it and dumped it very frequently. That patch started leaking pretty much within a week. That patch was leaking. So excellent for a really short-term emergency fix, but obviously not a great long-term solution. So the first thing that I came across was, when I was looking for a long-term solution, was to weld the plastic together. Now these tanks are made of ABS plastic, so not all glues. You have to use a certain type of glue, certain type of of fittings and PVC type fittings for the ABS plastic tanks. So I'm going to try to weld the crack back together. So I saw a lot of people were using soldering irons and welding the cracks back together. So I tried to do that. That was really terrible. That just made the leak worse, made the crack bigger. So then I come across a post where a gentleman was talking about how he fixed his using a fiberglass patch. So I dug into that research, and that ended up being the way that I decided to go. So I made a fiberglass patch and went ahead and patched up the tank. We did a video on that showing you the whole process. I showed you how I messed it up the first time because there was still a little bit of water in the tank that was kind of dripping out. So the fiberglass patch got a little bit wet when I was applying the resin over the top of it, and it didn't take, and it looked terrible. It looked really bad. So I ripped that patch off, and we quit using our gray tank completely in the kitchen for a couple of days to let that get really dry. I put a bucket under there. I shoved paper towels in there just to try to get as much water out of there and get that thing as dry as I possibly could. That worked out great. So I ended up getting it dry, put the fiberglass patch over it. It looked great. It looked like it was really gonna take well, and it did. And now 2 years later, 2 years after making that repair is still holding up. So if you want to see that whole process, I'll leave the link above to the video where I go through start to finish how to use the fiberglass patch. I show you what not to do. I show you some of the mistakes that I made there on the first attempt at it, so that hopefully you won't have to waste all that time letting your resin dry and then go in there and rip it all off and start again. So 2-year update. That patch is still holding up. It's as good. I mean, that tank is as good as new. and that fiberglass patch is solid. So if you have a cracked tank, and this was on the very bottom, so there's a lot of pressure there, there's a lot of flex, a lot of sag in that tank when it starts to fill up with water. So if you had a crack like up on the side or the top, I mean, that's going to be an awesome repair for that. It's going to be much easier to do because it's not going, you're not going to have that constant water trying to drip out while while you're trying to make that repair. So it's not hard to do. Don't be intimidated by it. It's a very easy process. Just take your time with it. But yeah, 2 years later, and we're still good to go. So just want to give an update on that. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you guys down the road.